Hello, everyone, and welcome to AfriCafe. In September 2025, the Ethiopian Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed announced the official inauguration of the Grand Ethiopian Renaissance Dam, saying to his neighbors, "This dam is not a threat, but a shared opportunity." This project, which Ethiopia considers a strategic asset for its electricity production, creates contention for countries like Egypt, who fear the disruption of water supplies to downstream countries. To discuss this and look at the prospects for mediation between the riparian states and the potential for the dam to reshape the political and economic status quo of the region, I am joined by Sarah Hasna Muqaddam, researcher in geopolitics and consultant in risks for investments. Thank you very much, Sarah, for joining us. And online, I have with me Jacques Kalpakian, Professor of International Relations at Al Akhawain University. Thank you for joining us. I would first like to direct my question to you, Dr. Kalpakian. The dispute over the Nile's water rights has deep historical roots, dating back to the colonial era. Many legal frameworks have sought to regulate the use of the river, yet negotiations have yielded no lasting outcomes or results. Could you please walk us through some of these frameworks and explain to us where the main points of contention lie?
Okay. So the first framework was the 1929 agreement between the British Empire, representing Sudan and Uganda, and Egypt, which was nominally independent. Under that, Sudan was allocated a certain amount of water. Egypt was allocated a little bit more water. And then a huge amount of water was left unallocated, with the idea that it would be used by the British colonies in the Great Lakes, Kenya, etc., and perhaps with Ethiopia. But Ethiopia refused to be part of this agreement. It wasn't even asked. It was an Egyptian-British agreement, reflecting the British rule that save with the agreement of Egypt, there will be no, and I'm quoting directly, there will be no use of the Nile water. In 1958, the remaining unallocated water was distributed in the 1959 Sudan-Egypt agreement, to which Ethiopia objected. And in international law, if you're not part of an agreement, you're not bound by its results. Since then, we have had multiple initiatives, one of which is the Nile Basin Initiative, but there were others, the antecedents, like Teco Nile. There was work done under the umbrella of IGAD as well, which sought to create a regime for the Nile, like the one that governs virtually every other transnational African river. But unfortunately, nothing came of it for a very simple reason. And this gets back to the heart of your question, why? The why is because Ethiopia and the Great Lakes states seek an allocative regime of the Nile. That means thereafter, water being allocated by state. Egypt wants to keep the current allocations, which favor it. And that's the heart of the impasse. The building of the dam doesn't quite change the regime picture, but I'm very hopeful from what I've heard from President Sisi and also from the Ethiopian leadership that both parties are leaving ample room open for the possibility of negotiated outcomes. And for me, that is critical.
So you're saying that you have maybe some hope that things will lead in the right direction. I'd like to direct my next question to you, Sarah, and ask you about the stakes for these different riparian states, both downstream and upstream countries, and what you think is the development trajectories that will happen due to the GERD.
Well, I think Dr. Kalpakian has really pointed that the issues leading to the impasse in terms of conversation, at least between the three riparian states of the Blue Nile. So Sudan, Egypt, Sudan, and Ethiopia. And it's mainly around, what is really shaping this issue is the conflict between different stakes. So for the two downstream countries, Egypt and Sudan, The idea is to maintain their acquired historic rights around the Nile. For Ethiopia, it's another story. I mean, for Ethiopia, this is a very large engineering success. The dam will increase its electric capacity. It's an hydroelectric dam with 5,000 to 6,000 megawatts of energy production of capacity. It's the largest hydropower facility in the continent. And beside the economic or the energy gains from this infrastructure, there is also a national psyche. It's a turning point for Ethiopia in terms of economic transformation, but it's also a moment of national pride, a proof of self-reliance, and a way to project to the world that they have their own ownership of the Nile waters, with them claiming that the source of the Nile is in Ethiopian highlands. So it's really a turning point for Ethiopia. Of course, for the other two downstream countries of the Blue Nile, the story is different. For Egypt relies on 90% on Nile waters for its drinking, its agriculture, its energy production as well. And they feel that they don't have the necessary guarantees from Ethiopian side. I mean, they've always called on Ethiopians lacking transparency in the construction process. There were also disagreements during the different negotiations round that have taken place from 2016 to 2023 being probably the last round. And they've always voiced their concern over the risks that they might face with Ethiopia conducting draft time, filling and leaving them with very little water for their own needs, especially that Egypt and Sudan are the countries that are mostly exposed to water stress in the region. So for Sudan, it's a different story. We always say that Sudan sits in between the two countries because it is probably one of the countries that would be beneficiate from the GERD if cooperation prevails over conflicts around the GERD. For Sudan, the GERD is 15 kilometers away from its borders. It's 100 kilometers also away from its largest dam, which is the Osiris Dam. And if everything is, let's say, well managed in terms of technical management of the dam might contribute to lowering the risk of flooding in Sudan, also lower sedimentation that is harming Sudanese dams. So that's why we consider, when we look at the different stakes here, we say that, for Sudan, probably there are gains, but it's about balancing between risks and opportunities because they also share the same concern as Egyptians. They're out of the process. They've been in the process with the NBI also and the cooperative framework agreement. They've held ministerial level and also leadership level discussions around the GERD. Yeah. But they've always probably for Egypt and Sudan, the main issue was the fact that Ethiopia has decided that it was a sovereign move to completely manage the dam by itself without involving the other countries. If we take the entire riparian countries also of the White Nile, this is a precedent-setting project. So, of course, many of them have supported the dam and have supported Ethiopia in its move because, of course, this project reflects a capacity of an African state to take matters with its own hands. It proves innovation in terms of financing, sovereignty in terms of using resources, and also it's a project with a great potential not only for Ethiopia's development but also for regional development. What I would like to highlight as well for the other countries is that beside being part and signatories of the Common Framework Agreement, they have also established in 2005 the East African electricity pool.
Yes.
So this is a massive project to kind of interconnect their electricity grid. And for many countries, they've already been connected. So, for instance, Sudan has been connected since 2022. In some parts of Sudan, the grid is connected with Ethiopian grid. Djibouti's grid is also connected since the start of the building of the grid, since 2011. So it's been 14 years. And recently it's been Kenya as well that has successfully been connected. And now Ethiopia has moved from a country that has been lacking energy for half of its population to a net exporter of energy to these countries. So for the past fiscal year, Ethiopia has managed to export over $100 million worth of energy to Kenya, Sudan, and Djibouti. And this is a major success. And that's why, the stakes are different. And of course, if well managed, it can be a transformative project for the region.
Yeah. So you mentioned that it's been more than a decade since the former prime minister announced the construction of the dam. So my next question is to Professor Kalpakian, and how have these leadership changes in Egypt and in Ethiopia, especially following the Arab Spring and the rise of a new young leader in Ethiopia, who is Abiy Ahmed, how have these turbulences or changes affected the state of the dispute around the Nile?
Okay, I don't think there has been too much change in policy in Egypt when it went from Mubarak to eventually Morsi and then to Sisi. The Egyptian narrative and policy positions have been fairly consistent. In Ethiopia, there was a bit of a change, but it's a change that's while relevant, it's also one that has more of an implication for Ethiopian internal politics. To put mildly, the dam represents a centralizing tendency in Ethiopia, represented best by Ahmed. The previous administration was far more into a federative Ethiopia. In fact, many of the people who were exiled after the removal of Haile Selassie and were living in the West were very happy with the rise of Abiy Ahmed, precisely because they objected to Zenawi's decentralization moves and the creation of regional states. And they wanted the center, Addis, to be in charge. And the dam reflects that sort of project. So it becomes linked not only with a national perspective that was more federative, pluralistic, at least theoretically under the previous administration, but it also has come to stand for the centrality of the Ethiopian state. And of course, if you read the history of that country, you will see that it has periods of centralization, fragmentation. And sometimes this is linked with external events. For example, the Mahdist revolution in Sudan and its attempts to export itself to Ethiopia, which ended up being catastrophic for both in the 19th century. But broadly speaking, I think that there is a very strong opportunity to capitalize on the gains that the dam represents, provided, of course, there are the appropriate assurances to Egypt. There are Egyptian observers. There were Egyptian observers for decades in Uganda and in Sudan to create a sense of confidence in Egypt in the country's water control and water management projects. Placing the dam, and as well as some other dams, under the oversight of a transnational body that includes Egypt and Ethiopia might be the way to proceed. This is a problem for whom there are known solutions. The oldest international organization in the world is the Danube, and then there is the Rhine organization. These are organizations to regulate these rivers and to manage them. And we have the tool to solve the problem. The question is, are we willing to bear it and to also accept the compromises necessary to move forward with the implementation of the already known solution? And that's, of course, a political decision for the leadership in Addis Ababa and also in Cairo.
So for you, this is not much of an issue with like external constraints, but a question of the absence of political will.
Yes.
My question next is to you, Sarah, and it is about the region in general. There are a lot of stakes for many countries, as you've mentioned, and there are a lot of interests for both global players and regional players. Some analysts are speaking of the encirclement of Ethiopia, especially with the defense agreements being signed between Egypt, Eritrea, and Somalia. Do you think that there is a risk of a proxy confrontation or direct confrontation between these states, or do you think that some of these risks or some of these calls are sort of inflaming the narrative or being more alarmist?
I mean, the Nile dispute has always been entangled in a web of regional conflicts or regional tensions. Mm-hmm. Of course, we mentioned the stakes for each country, so these are not to be neglected. It's a central issue in the region. But you mentioned the encirclement of Ethiopia. Ethiopian officials have always called on the danger from external mediation around the GERD, and that the conflict might be instrumentalized. The issue might be instrumentalized by other means, by other countries. We've seen moves from Egypt with neighboring countries. I mean, they frequently hold military exercises with Sudan. You have the Nile Eagles. It's an air and ground exercise, and also the Guardians of the Nile. So even the names, can probably lead some to think that there is some encirclement around Ethiopia. There is also intelligence sharing with the Eritrea, a country that is neighboring Ethiopia, with whom Ethiopia has tried to make peace, but it did not last for so long. For Somalia, because you have also mentioned the military arrangements or coordination, let's say, security coordination between Egypt, Sudan, and Somalia. But for Somalia, it's a different story, because since late 2024, we see different signals from Somalia. I mean, the president of Somalia has been present in the inauguration, and he wasn't the only one. Mm-hmm. There were other countries. Kenya's president, William Ruto, was there. Omar Gelle from Djibouti was also present. Hassan Sheikh Mohammed of Somalia was present. So there, Salva Kiir from South Sudan. So there are many countries, and I think the picture is not only about being pro or against GERD. Mm-hmm. I think really now the issue has to be beyond confrontation, and I also agree that there should be a way of co-managing a project that is increasingly being presented by Ethiopia as a regional public good. So it is a way to ease worries and tensions around the dam itself, and to allow for a better integration around a common energy project. This is a major project, and I think it wouldn't be the only one, because Ethiopia is, by ranking of hydropower potential, is the second in the continent. Mm-hmm. So this is after DRC, following DRC. So I think, there are other projects also in the continent that are shaping up, and this could be a first instance of an African development project where Ethiopia is providing a regional public good that is co-managed for the benefit of everyone, allowing for a pragmatic coexistence around different countries, to see this project really fulfill its ambition. Yeah. Because the ambition of the GERD is not only national, it is regional. So you have to also provide some transparency to other riparian countries. But for your question, would the conflict be possible in the region? I don't think a direct conflict. This is an opinion, because I think for the countries involved also, they think they can see and that the impact of such a conflict can be damaging, devastating in terms of economy, stability for the region, ecologically for the region if it's around the dam. So I don't think this is the route, and we've seen for the past decade that there was an attempt of accepting discussion, accepting different mediations, and of course with the downstream countries always repeating the same worry, being that they lack the necessary transparency to feel reassured about the intentions from this project. So I don't think that a direct military conflict would take place around the Nile, but I think the routes are different, and probably now it's about realizing that the cooperation is the only way forward.
Okay. So for you, the only way forward is to cooperate. I'd like to ask both of you what you think the future prospects for the Nile disputes are. How do you think it will go, and how can we benefit of this project collectively as an African continent?
Okay, thank you very much. I share these views. I think that it's vital for cooperation to take place. In the 19th century and early 20th century, the Egyptian Irrigation Service had a British officer called H.E. Hurst, who led it, who advocated total Nile storage or century plan. There are many words for what he advocated, but essentially the logic is very simple, and it's quite appealing. The Nile River is a unit. The white, blue, Atbara, Bahr al-Ghazal, all of these things form one unit. So management should take place within the context of a single frame. And that it should include all the stakeholders, all the countries, all the communities, all the players in the region should participate together in managing their common resource. And this was the view of the Ismail al-Ashari government, which led Sudan to independence in 1956. And it's a view that initially Egypt rejected. So it may be time to dust off those plans and to revive basically management of the Nile as a single unit for the benefit of all the countries and communities involved. And that will entail compromises by Ethiopia, it will entail compromises by Egypt, it will entail accommodations by Sudan and Uganda, among others. So, but I'm optimistic because in my profession, there is enough bad that goes on in the world. The last thing we need is to predict bad things happening. So I'm optimistic because there is a chance for a peaceful development of the Nile Basin. And I'm very glad to hear that cooperation is being looked at very seriously once again. Thank you.
Thank you for your insights. Do you share these opinions?
Well, definitely, I think, cooperation is the way forward, and it's about, moving from confrontational interaction to a more intelligently managed solution. The way forward for me is technical cooperation. This is definitely, I think, the only way to manage different stakes and find a way to provide the necessary data sharing, coordination for filling of the dam, to make sure, that the no harm principle is there around the GERD. And I think, this is something that should be in line with, whatever has been done for the past 26 years, at least since the Nile Basin Initiative was established. And I think it was the first attempt was at finding common grounds. And I think, the politics went really, let's say, towards a different direction, but things on the ground have been moving despite political confrontation. And now it's clearly a fait accompli. You have a mega dam built, so it's about really rapidly changing the tone around the management of the project. And I think that, there are very positive signals from different leaderships around the riparian states. So I think, the way forward will be cooperation, and will be still very observing the issue and hoping for the best around it.
Thank you very much both for your insights. I'm happy to hear that this is disputes that may not last for a very long time, and there's prospects for cooperation, especially with the correct political will and viewing the Nile as a single unit and cooperating technically. I'm very glad to have had both of you today to speak about the inauguration of the Grand Ethiopian Renaissance Dam. Thank you very much, Sarah Hasna Muqaddam and Dr. Kalpakian, Jack. It has been a wonderful conversation, and I hope that our viewers will be happy to listen to us.